Welcome to Wake the Farm Up. This is Wooden Shoe Hollow, May 6, 2023. Recorded live after a day of plant walks. Enjoy the creativity. Support the show. Drop a link. Check the notes and the footnotes of the shows. Enjoy some of the other shows. For now, come on, wake the farm up. Get hooked up to the greater ecosystem. How you connected, how you linking in, what's your nature? You are nature. How you gonna do it? Let's talk about it. Let's learn about it from each other. Let's grow in this connect. Let's see how we're gonna do this. Come on, it's time. Wake the farm up. Wake the forest up within your soul. Yeah, for those of you who just want like the hard solid points and just get straight to the serious, go ahead and skip around. For those of you who want to enjoy the whole live show, enjoy this. This is some crazy stuff here in the beginning. I don't know, we were getting set up and getting the crowd together. This is what it was.
This is an interpreter, right? Yes. See, let me... Is there an off switch on? Yeah. Here, hold on. See, like... Can you understand what I'm saying without the microphone? No, I understand. Can you understand that clear? Here, chicken. Can you understand me? Clearly, chicken. Now I want to sing a duet with Stefin. This is too cute. Oh my god. I feel like with Kanye in the woods. The trees are really pretty on a day like this. And the plant leaves is like just that shape, that green. That's amazing how it works out like that. Just like that dendritic patterns of the branches. It is crazy like that though. Yeah. How many of you have grown avocados out of your compost pile? Huh? Yeah? Yes, we have. I know. Patrick, do you want to take it to? Alright, they work. Did you record that? Actually I did. Yes. Yeah. We got terrain on the recording, so it's picking it up properly. Rhyme check. We got the old hi-lady. We got the old hi-lady. Seriously, that's really incredible. That was really incredible. So how many of you got to learn about the grass under your feet today and how it can be turned into an actual real instrument? You're standing on instruments. It's real instruments. When I first came to this planet, I decided that I would eat grass. I tried it and it was really good. You like it? Yeah, it's amazing. And then I ate it. And then I learned how it was actually an instrument. So, come back up here. We'll interpret more stuff. And in the meantime, let's give a big round for Patty Walker coming to Plantwalker. And she's been dropping the hammer down. We've been dropping the hammer down. We got 10 more minutes of Patty Walker, dropping the hammer down. It's time to drop the hammer down. Let's hear Patty Walker. Didgeridoo not, didgeridoo why not, didgeridoo donut, what? I ain't been, wake the farm up.
You like this one, Liz?
I like the swirl in your hair. Should we tell people to start calming down yet? Should we tell people they should, relax a little bit? Nah, let's let them keep going crazy here. Look at that. We got people up in chains. Alright, welcome. Wake the farm up. We're down here at Wooden Shoe Hollow.
Yep. That's right. We're down here in Woodshoe Hollow. It is May 6th, 2023. That only happens once. I don't know. But that's, we could rewrite the calendar and make it happen again if we wanted to, because the whole calendar has been arbitrarily made up anyway, and we all just somehow agree on it, right? So that's what we're going to agree on. But welcome to Wake the Farm Up. We're, been doing this podcast for about a year. And what's going on? Everything just switched up.
Sounded like a robot, and I don't know how to change that.
All right. Give thanks, Stefin back here, our sound man. Everybody, give a little round out for all the energy he puts into this. Our co-host, Liz Virgo.
Hi, everyone.
And Ande the Elf. First up, we're going to have a moment here on the show with a special guest who's been on this show before in the past in a live show. This is Patrick Sherwin, who's been hosting us in the space today in the Plantwalker adventures that we've had here. Thank you so much for hosting us, but we want to give you a couple minutes here. We got the sandglass of time. So we're going to introduce everybody that's here that's new to the Wake the Farm Up show. We got a 2-minute calibrated timepiece here. I've checked it with digital timepieces and other things if you believe in digital more than falling sand. But the falling sand, it drops at 2 minutes every time. So that's how this show goes. We welcome up guests who are going to be talking about amazing things, farm life, art, home, local good homesteading, good fun things. Nature here. Patrick Sherwin, 2 minutes, uninterrupted. 30 minutes.
Hey, what's happening? Thank you so much, Andy. I'm so glad to be here and to be thriving and thriving with you all in the Ohio Valley here. Beautiful May day. It's just after Beltane. We get a chance to honor the great ones that have come before us. It's all about embracing the goddess. We're in her womb. We're hoping to plant the most beautiful things, sow the most beautiful gardens, and that all of our seeds shall grow this year. Just a great chance to kick around with Ande the Elf, get shown a new life with the plants. Wonderful co-host Liz to learn more about what she's doing with food and culture. And I'm just lucky to be a part of it, bringing my little solar kitchen gifts. Glad to invite the permaculture community as well. One of the big things I learned today had to do with survival. I realized that that's kind of what this is about on some level, that it doesn't mean the same thing we think of when we hear survival. It's like, oh, that's an instantaneous moment where all things come together and we're coming to, they're all falling, and if I don't, make the right moves in the next 5 minutes, I'm done. No, it's really about survival of the human race as well as all these other creatures we get to share this planet with. And it's something that's happening over a long period of time as we build resilience, build community, and distribute our power with respect to intelligence and the ability to create and keep each other healthy and healed, growing food, educating each other. And my little piece of it all is to help distribute energy to all so that we're all little independent, resilient, pure water, pure air fanatics.
Wake the farm up. The sand dropped right then. Nice clap. Closure in there. They're going crazy up in the treetops. Up on top of these, there's people popping out of these steam towers.
Thank you, Blades. Thank you, Blades.
Yeah. All over. Yeah, thank you so much. Do you have any questions for, you've been sharing so much with us today. I wanted you to kind of welcome into this recording on this show. Is there anything else that you wanted to share on this recording at this point right now?
Oh, no, I'm just lucky enough to be in the energy of whatever comes tonight.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Appreciate your creativity, guys.
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about what we're doing here on the Gosun land. We've been having a really awesome day. It's not just an episode, but we've been doing some plant walking. A Plantwalkers event put together by Ande the Elf here,
Max McCormick.
and Max McCormick. And this was supposed to be 3 years ago, right? No, you. It was just
3 years ago.
3 years ago,
That's a whole other story, I guess.
right? So let's get into it.
Okay. Yeah, 3 years ago we had some pretty interesting characters that were going to be coming here. Plantwalkers from multiple states. And then we were going to have probably 3 plantwalkers, going at a time. It was going to be pretty cool, but yeah, that got shut down. So, moving on.
March 2020, right? It
Yeah.
was all scheduled, all planned up for March 2020, and we all know the world fell apart, and so then 3 years later,
Like flowers.
we got MegaMaxxx involved and really helped put this thing together. I'm really just here for the podcast. I was just a lucky guest of the whole event, but I'm happy to be here, and we got to be here on the land.
Oh,
where,
Liz, I know you like going on plant walks. What are you talking about? Just for the podcast? You're like,
well,
plant
of
walks?
course. I'm just saying I didn't put the event together. I got no credit on that line. But
Okay, gotcha.
but being here, of course, for the plant walks, that was wonderful. And on the Gosun land and getting to see all the wonderful different types of plants that are growing here, learning even, thinking about, I almost wanted to say the different natives and the invasive plants, but of course we talked about that kind of language today and how, maybe we're steering away from even talking about plants as invasive, and of course there's a lot to that and a lot to protecting native plants, but really learning to incorporate some of the plants that are definitely here to stay and are part of the ecosystem now, whether or not they have been here for very long.
Yeah, getting that growing perspective as a community of the plants around us and, what's growing around us together. And I loved hearing some of the different common names today that, just hearing what an area in particular will call a certain plant. I love it in Cincinnati, we call them wild onions, but they're actually botanically a wild garlic. Just saying.
Yes. And some other awesome stuff that happened here where it's definitely some Gosun demoing. I know that Gosun has been on the show before, but we're really lucky to even be still eating some Gosun food right now. The whole setup had some awesome different food. We had a potluck here. Thanks everybody for bringing food to share. And yeah, it's really cool to see all the different little gadgets and ways that solar energy can be captured and utilized, and it's beautiful to be a part of that because obviously, you say your little part is providing energy or whatever exactly you said. That's obviously not a little part. That's kind of a big thing on our whole planet right now, how we're getting energy. It's it's an important thing to be conscious of. So really awesome to be here and be a part of that.
Yeah. Wake the farm up. All right, let's all give it a good wake the farm up. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wake the farm up. Yeah. I can hear it in all the valleys nearby, echoing out to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And speaking of MegaMaxxx, where are you? I want to hear. This is
I see them. I see MegaMaxxx.
I have a question about the Gosun next. What's the next steps? Where are you headed next with the whole plans?
All right, we're going to go into.
Cool.
You want to go into a little Gosun?
Awesome.
Action
I would like to. I'm curious. Is that okay?
Yeah, we should do it. But before here, I was going to ask Max here to give the land acknowledgement. And here they come. So before we get into it a little bit more, this was an important part of our day.
Yes, please.
So I think it should be incorporated on the podcast as well.
The LA.
The land acknowledgement, please.
Yeah, so when we all gathered up earlier, we made sure to take a moment to reflect on the fact that we are currently on stolen Miami, Delaware, Hopewell, Caldwell land right now. I'm sure I missed a few. And something that I like to say during land acknowledgements is that it's not enough to purely acknowledge that, and that if we are people that are descended from colonizers, or really anyone occupying this land who isn't indigenous, really the best way to make things right is to invest our time or money in existing indigenous communities and organizations. And just to point out that indigenous communities and organizations still exist, are still alive and well. Here in Cincinnati, we have the Urban Native Collective. They just changed their name to that. And so to set a positive example, part of the proceeds that we made from this event today are going to be donated to them.
Previously known as the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition. Just changed their names a day or two ago, so you might recognize it by the GCNAC.
Yeah, and I just want to inspire people that at your events to make these land acknowledgements a regular practice, and to remind people that these communities are still out there, are still impacted by the effects of colonization. It's not something that is purely a historical phenomena. It still has very real impacts today. And that indigenous sovereignty is really going to be the best way for us to move forward with some of these climate and environmental issues that we currently face. Indigenous people are and have been the best stewards of land on this earth, and I just think acknowledging that and supporting those efforts is really important.
Wake the farm up. Let's do it again. Wake the farm up.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Max, how did you enjoy this day? It was such a beautiful plant walking adventure day. People talking about plants everywhere.
Everything came together so nicely. I was glad to see everything come to fruition, all of our visions, everything sort of fall into place. We had excellent workshops, wonderful plant walks. I feel like beginners and advanced people alike really got a lot out of the experience, and just the pleasure of the community building and spending time together, sharing food together, playing games, having an environment in which it's easy to just nerd out on whatever random plant or plant-related concept, to just have people that are sharing that common interest was really cool.
Yeah, I loved hearing different angles of plants from people, or perspectives on how they view them or how they taste to them. They're like, oh, I don't like that one. and it's like one of my favorites. And just like, just seeing how everybody gets their own little connection with plants. Like the details of it. It's fascinating to me.
I think it's best to not be dogmatic and prescribe, like, here are the things you should and ought to notice. Like, I pepper in a little bit of botanical language when I'm talking about plant ID. However, I think it's important for people to make their own observations and, like, an idea or something that sticks for them to become familiar with that plant, comfortable with it, instead of feeling the need to, like, staunchly adhere to the more botanical or scientific language. That's definitely helpful, especially when we're walking out with just a field guide. But in terms of building those individual relationships that really last, that we remember, I think it's important to engage people and have them engage their creativity to kind of like be able to recognize some of these plants.
Yeah, and if you can gift them some fun new vocabulary, like if somebody learns 3 new cool botanical words in a plant walk, they can go and write a poem they never would have been able to write before.
Language is amazing like that.
And I'm just sitting here literally in the middle of you two, like just absolutely vibing off of that because I've had the experience of learning from both of you. And I love how, for me, a lot of that started with this podcast. Like I heard Max on a podcast episode and then started following them and then went to a plant ID class. And then that was in the winter, tree ID class. And I've been looking at the forest completely differently ever since. There's still so many. Now I actually recognize how many trees I don't know. Before I kind of didn't even think about it. But there's also trees that I do know now that I certainly wouldn't have before. And it's been nice to come here in a different season and be able to expand on that knowledge and see how they look in this different environment. And Andy definitely teaches me a lot about plants as well. So it's just really fun for me to be. I can attest to what you all are saying.
I think it's great that you bring that up, actually, because a lot of times when I have beginners attend my tree and or plant walks, people are like, I just didn't realize there were so many different things. It breaks down the phenomena of just seeing one green wall. And you're actually able to look at individuals and be like, wow, even just standing in this small space, there's 100 species right here.
Right.
Yeah. I love that about a forest and learning to see those patterns and connect it all together and keep continually learning the puzzle of the ecosystem. And then there's always some new thing that you learn that's just makes it all connect together even more.
Yeah. I think it's funny too, you're saying, suddenly you realize there's so many different species. I keep having this experience of looking at all these different trees and thinking there's something else. And then Andy's just no, that's a white oak. Every time I'm okay, fine. All right.
What? It's always a white oak?
Why is it always a white? Okay. I think it's because I'm specifically trying to identify the oaks right now.
From the bark.
That's from the bark. But
and there's this time right now where the leaves are 1 week they're tiny and you'll go back and look at it and it'll be half bigger and then just you just keep changing their textures and colors, the vibrant colors of that fresh green growth.
I always tell people that tree identification is most difficult during spring. A lot of people assume that winter would be the most challenging ID, but I'm like, no, it's spring. You no longer can rely on those winter buds. You have everything. All the buds are flowering out. They're little inflorescences. They're tiny little leaves. The leaves aren't fully formed. It's difficult to see, where the petiole attaches to the twig. It's not fully formed yet,
Yeah.
So spring, and you have some that are in winter mode, some that are fully leafed out in summer mode, some that are still inflorescences, Spring's definitely trickier.
I see when the hickory buds open, they get so huge, people will point at it and be like, what kind of flower is that? And I'm like, that's just the leaves budding open. And it's such a beautiful form that it's a flower. Yeah.
Yep.
Hickory dickory dock.
Yeah, spring's definitely a special time on many fronts.
yeah.
And that's where we're at. We just made it past May Day.
Right? Set the latter half of spring here. Should have had a maple.
We had maples.
Oh,
We got maples.
yes, perfect.
Yeah, let's
Thank you so
pass
much,
it in,
Meg.
Patrick.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're the
Meg.
bomb. And so somebody asked me what's next with Gosun, and I'm just going to jump in real quick, and then I'll get out of your way because this podcast has just great destiny. Andy, I'm so
Wait,
proud
hold
of
on.
you.
Can I guess?
Is it go moon? Are you gonna have some stuff doing things at night, like sucking energy off the moon now or something?
Thanks, MegaMaxxx. Thanks for putting on this event. This has been the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually been in circles. I got the moon energy capabilities. This solar panel's gonna be mine.
And then they just moon you, and you're like, no, come on, man.
Oh, great respect for our son. So a great designer and architect by the name of William McDonough came up with a design competition, and he works in he works in these Ivy League schools, some of the best minds in the world, and he says, okay, I've got a design project for you guys, and the considerations of the design are always the key. How do you start? What are my confines that I'm trying to work within? He says, okay, I want you to develop something that produces oxygen, sequesters carbon, fixes nitrogen, uses photosynthesis, accrues solar energy as fuel, makes complex sugars and food, changes colors with the seasons, create microclimates, and self-replicates while purifying water.
Oh.
Good luck.
Oh, and you were like, I know this dude that's been working on it since like 19. I was hanging when I met him, and he was like, I was just like, yeah, plants.
And that's you. And I've always taken like the more harder mechanical route. I'm more of the engineer, and so we balance each other well because I help Andy see the solar panel in every plant. And he helps me see the sophistication in every
the biomimicry, even
cell.
maybe you could say, that comes into like vines, like these cords that come out of microphones, can go and they can be charged by a solar system. Like electric from the sun can be going into this thing, just like it goes into a plant.
They're doing the organic photovoltaics now, and we're getting smarter and smarter with our neurophysicists, and so it's not long before we will become our own little bioelectrical experiments and start controlling nature, so to speak. But I'm just gonna sit back and watch and honor what nature has brought us. And I'll say too, I'm working more and more to try to embrace technology and how we're going to evolve and co-evolve together.
Cool. Yeah, at Hocking College, my college, the whole school's phrase there was where nature meets technology. So it's what I've seen my whole life. Nature's been meeting technology, and technology is mimicking nature back and forth. It's fascinating.
And that line might be getting blurrier and blurrier. In the past, nature met technology by just destroying it. and let's hope that we can have a future where nature and technology coexist, and we're using technology to make more of it. And that's what I think permaculture is. Permaculture is a way of using nature as a tool to develop more of itself. But I am not your special guest tonight. You have a
That was pretty special. I mean, like, squeaky mouse in there. But that was pretty special. Yeah, I mean, it's really curious. I'm curious about the whole technology thing. If anybody does have like phobia of technology and they're afraid of that kind of situation, it's good to know that in future prospects of
Technology that in about 400 million years, all the technology that we create now will be gone. But biology will continue to exist and can continue to exist. They find microorganisms in core samples of the ocean that are over 100,000
years old, and as soon as they bring them out of the ocean, they start self-replicating and coming to life again, and they were just dormant for that long. These, like electronic things, they need other things that they're going to be searching the galaxy trying to find new ways to harvest all these different nutrients that they need. I mean, right now they're searching our planet for lithium to try to extract as much as they can for their need for that technology aspect. I mean, it's going to be finite, and they'll figure out they can make it with other batteries and all that kind of stuff. But in the long run, biology's going to win. You don't have to worry about it, but in the next 25 years, things might we're going to be dancing with technology, huh? So I think this podcast should be on the internet for another 400 million years, if my predictions are correct. So, what do you think of that, Liz, real quick, before we bring up a special guest? What do you think of that, Stefan, before we bring up a special guest? I know you...
Well, I think we have a really special guest here. I like Patrick a lot, and I really like what you're doing. Both sides of this idea is about people power. We talked about that. And that people power concepts where developing different kind of energies or ways of, like, I move right now, and that's energy. So how are we harnessing, using that in its preciseness, in the minutiae and the nuance? But I feel like things you're working on are doing that. So I have a lot of respect for you. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely magical. It's wonderful to be part of this time and to be seeing so many different approaches to the same goal, because we really need all the approaches. I mean, life is all about diversity, and the only way we're going to come to any solution for any of us, not to say that there's necessarily a solution, but as if lots of different minds are working towards a permanent future.
Yeah, wake the farm up.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen and everyone, I'd like for you all to welcome up our first guest that we're going to have here. And he's going to jump right in. He's definitely into the idea of the nature technology kind of theme that we're rolling with, so we can just roll with that. This is Mark Cohen, coming over from Athens, Ohio area, permaculture practitioner, teacher, activist. That's what I got out of him. A lot of people are permaculture teachers, but like the activist part, like legit stuff.
Yes, had some great conversations with Mark today. I'm so excited to have these on the mic.
Hey folks, thanks so much for having me and gathering here in this beautiful valley, beautiful spring day. I can jump in real quick on where nature meets technology. I've been working on a beta testing engineering project using Stirling engines, starting off with plants, trees in the form of wood that are gasified at about 1850 degrees and run a Stirling engine to make electricity for an off-grid solar system to charge batteries when the sun isn't shining. And in order to make that electricity, you've got to cool one end of it. And in order to do that, you pump liquid through the base of it and you get a lot of hot water. So you can heat your home, get your electricity for your batteries, and you end up with charcoal, which is the basis of terra preta in the Amazon. These, thousands of years old soils, they're man-made. And so
What is that soil called? Terra
preta? Terra preta. Yeah. Anyway, it's one of the, I can't think of another example of what human beings have ever done that have benefited all living things more than 600 years after they've done it. So you combine the best of what trees do and the technology of modern people doing creative work and come up with something that builds really rich soil for a very long time. We do a lot of other things with it for detoxifying water and soils and animals. People run internal combustion engines secondarily with it. So it's a very interesting example of what you were just talking about, I think.
Yeah, can you like how did you so what's the internal combustion engine like? So it just runs off the hot water?
A Stirling engine is an external combustion engine, and it's running off of the heat from the gasification of the wood that you're starting with. And so it's only burning the wood up to charcoal, not to ash. There's a tremendous opportunity between the difference between charcoal and ash. So you burn it a few minutes longer and you got nothing, almost. You got potassium and so forth. But the opportunity is knowing when to stop. And people have been using charcoal. I mean, if you look at even Iowa soils, a very large portion of that carbon came from native peoples burning the prairie. And so this is not a new thing. Aboriginal Australians, people all over the world have been using fire in creative ways. So it's a nuanced use of fire that isn't bad. Most people think that burning is bad and global warming and all this stuff. Well, this is carbon negative. It's it's binding more carbon in the soil for the long term than it's liberating, even though you are burning.
Right.
So
okay.
50% of the tree's carbon is locked in for thousands of years. The other 50 is getting burned. But if you're heating your house and you're making electricity, you're displacing much worse versions of the same thing. So you have to really do some long-term thinking to really kind of size that one up. Is that my 2 minutes?
That was your 2 minutes, but yeah, we would love to keep talking with you some more.
I
Just getting started.
Loop back on another subject in a little bit. I'll be here all night.
So you were telling me earlier, and I'd love to share this with the show, is that you live off-grid.
Yep.
So you have explored, actively a lot of these alternative energy sources, and I imagine that's how you connected with Patrick here too. I know he was working with what is that, Dovetail
Solar
Solar that was out there. That's what I remember meeting those guys like 20 years ago out there. Are they still
Right, there's
things?
Third Sun and Dovetail numerous solar companies in Athens,
Cool. So there's a lot of people setting up off-grid there.
There's a lot of folks dug in within about a 50-mile radius of Athens. It's a pretty special place.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm far enough away from the grid that even if I wanted to be on it, I really couldn't.
It would be more like a difficult project than
more expensive than all the solar projects
running
combined.
a wire.
But I never did anyway. I never wanted it to be on, so I'm happy
Nice.
where I am.
Yeah. So for off-grid, I know when sometimes I play this role of the cultivator host where I don't know as much about all this stuff as Andy and a lot of the guests, so I get to ask the more simple questions.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised when I went to stay at somebody's house who lived off-grid, and I realized that they still had some energy. It wasn't just completely no electricity, no nothing like that. So what level of electricity do you have in your situation?
I've got all forms. I mean, I've got DC and AC, and I've got enough battery power that when the sun's shining, it's kind of strange because most people are trying to turn off lights and save energy. When the sun's out and your batteries are full, you've got to get really creative. I've got coffee roasters. I've got all sorts of things I can do. But you pump your water, you do your vacuuming, your laundry, and the sun's still out. So it's the opposite of this idea that we have to use less energy.
Yeah.
So you only have to use less if you've got a dirty cycle of producing it in the first place. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I feel that tends to be a theme as I get deeper and deeper into this world, with foraging. You hear a lot about responsible foraging, and you do have to definitely be careful with certain plants and stuff, but to some degree, a lot of it is just oh my God, I have so much of this. What am I going to do? How am I going to preserve this? It's there is actually so much abundance in the world and nature, and so much available to us as a species and as multiple species, if we can only learn to cultivate it the right way. And we have certainly the technology to do so, and people wanting to invest in that, but the will is sometimes lacking. Grateful to be around people who have that will today.
Yeah. I work with United Plant Savers for quite some time on the advisory board, and there's a lot of plants that are at risk and are being talked about as being over-harvested. I generally tend to call them under-cultivated or under-propagated because there could be endless amounts of these things if enough of us propagate them and learn the cycle of collecting seed and how to make more of them. Yeah.
That connection, connecting them into our culture. What's the cultural significance? I often think of in marketing, that concept of a globe artichoke. How weird of a plant is that? It's a biennial thistle, and you eat the heart of the flower. And there's so many other weird, bizarre things that we can eat in this world, but this one particular, you can buy it in cans at a rural gas station in Indiana where I live. It's that's fascinating to me. How did that become so ingrained into our culture that we're willing to grow this thistle for 2 years and work for that? But these other things, they could get that much attention as well.
Yeah, it's in the stories and the recipes and the cultural systems that, there's an interesting story that Gary Paul Nabin told me a while back. I don't know if people are familiar with him. He's written a lot of books. I'd highly recommend reading all of them. But we were talking about genetics, the genetics of our food supply, and in general, it's a terrible story. We've lost, between in USDA records alone from 1804 to 1904, we've lost over 90% of all the crops you can name, everything that's been studied. And then there was this kind of cleanup by the big seed companies of buying up all the small open pollinated seed companies and then monopolizing the hybrids and moving people toward GMOs and so forth. So most of it's pretty bad. But one of the things he was saying was, was that.
You laid out a lot right there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more. There's a lot to that story, and it's an important one. I mean, a lot of what we're doing ultimately is making choices of what we're picking off the shelf or what we're planting is deciding the genes that are surviving going into the future to a very large degree. But what he was saying in this case was kind of fascinating. That in the Appalachian region, that the varieties of food plants have quadrupled in the seed collections. And when we got into why, it was really because of CSAs and farmers markets, and particularly the stories that go along with them. When somebody's getting something, and here's this pepper that's in a Mexican mole, or here's a tomato from an Italian dish, and so forth. And so those stories are keeping, and the cultural diets are keeping the plant diversity going because they're required as ingredients for these cultural dishes. So recipes are a big deal.
Yeah, I think most people follow recipes and measure things. And I don't know, maybe I'm more creative than that, I guess. Like I'll learn like a certain pattern of like how to make a salad dressing. And then in those patterns, I'll play with it with whatever I have. Instead of going to a certain place and expending a certain amount of energy to get exactly what somebody else had put on the ingredients and trying to create exactly what they had created in the past. It's kind of like writing music, like I'm fascinated. I don't read music personally. I love to play music, and it's fascinating to me that I might make something out on the spot, and it might get recorded, and then somebody that knows how to write it down can write it down, and then somebody else can play it, and it would sound very similar or something like that. That's fascinating to me that can be done. Like ingredients on a thing. Yeah,
well, the interesting thing about sure, creativity is excellent and you can do anything one time, but when it turns into a cultural pattern where for intergenerational continuity for these seed plants so that they're not diminishing and just dying out in some individual's garden shed, but where they get incorporated into a long-term, ritual really of gathering the family and the families, and this is what we eat, and we do it over a long period of time. So yeah, there's a slightly different piece there than just creativity in the moment, which I'm all for. I do the same thing.
Well, it could be fun. There'd be lots of stories of what cousin did with the recipe or with that certain pepper that the family likes to use or whatever, and then they create some whole new offshoot. And somebody writes down that recipe. I mean, that's how all these cultural foods started anyway, by what was growing in the landscape around them and finding the way they went together. Just fascinating things like the way that the foods were put together, and then now that we have science and we can educate ourselves on these, how these foods being put together made sense for our bodies, for the way they're digested together, all of that. The lime with the corn, when corn first went to Europe, just the stories of how many people died from stomach problems because they didn't properly process it.
Nixtamalize, right?
They didn't know.
Yeah, the Ayurvedic knowledge and the Indian food and recipes where they've really fully integrated medicine and food. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, thinking about the cultural aspect, I'm interested in culture a lot. And I find that for me, connecting to my ancestry, which isn't necessarily passed down to me through stories directly, but I can connect to certain cultural food ways, and that's really satisfying. particularly like I have indigenous ancestry, so learning foraging, learning about different native plants, learning about, and when I can, learning about that from indigenous teachers. It can be a really grounding experience when those stories weren't able to be passed down from one generation to another for so many reasons. And the same with my, I would say I would connect more to like an African ancestry. And, we had Mark Williams on our show. You must if you're on the board of the Plant Savers. So it's not just me. A lot of people connect to culture through these different foodways. So that's really cool to hear it from the perspective that you just shared.
Yeah, I've also been kind of tuning into, ingredients like I make a cacao drink. I spent a lot of time in Central America and grew chocolate or cacao for a long time, but then, you're using coconut cream and vanilla and honey from a jungle honey, that all of these things are coming from trees. They're not annual plants that are coming from gardens, which are fine. But when you're eating or drinking something and you're aware that you're supporting landscapes that are perennial, mature trees in a lot of cases, there's just a connection between ingredients and landscape that's worth being conscious of.
Absolutely, yeah. Wake the farm up on that one.
Yeah, wake the farm up.
For sure, yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank
So I'll
you
give
so
a
much.
hand to, like Mark his words here. Mark Cohen.
For sure, yeah. I had it's been fun talking about some grocery-free stuff today. Had a fun conversation with Patrick about that. Giving up grocery stores earlier this year and having all of my food come from local farmers markets, from food that I forage, from food that I grow. I fantasize a lot about being in Costa Rica and supporting those landscapes. Sometimes I'm like, it would be nice to have some coconut right now. But
Well, hey, with
support the show, maybe I'll get there.
moving the Wake the Farm Up show along, jumping right from that too. I would love to see if David Rosenberg, are you ready to come up on the mic for a little bit? You can bring your chair if you feel relaxed. Yeah, he's dancing. Get him set up with this one.
Where's my wheelchair?
Your wheelchair? You got like rollerblades.
This is my wheelhouse.
He's got
right?
he's got like rollerblades on. He's like rolled down here.
Oh, I see
What do you need?
And those toe shoes. I'm into that sort of thing.
Step away from the
I don't
speaker a
have
little
any,
bit
but I'm
so it
into
doesn't
it.
squeak on you like that. So like staying like this there and there a little bit more. All right, so this is my friend David Rosenberg. He found me sleeping in his neighbor's backyard at one point, and then we got to know each other a bit. And he's been down here farming in the Wooden Shoe Hollow for a long time. I'm not going to put a number. I'll let him get into more of that maybe. I've known some of his children, and they've been on little adventures around the area in the forest here when I was younger.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time. We've seen each other at markets and encouraged each other along the way with our idiot hobby of trying to like grow lots of food and but we both have a passion for that and have really shared that. And so I'd love to hear and whatever you want to share, but definitely am excited to hear where you've come from on the land here in Wooden Shoe and where you're at and where you see these kind of things going.
You're reminding me of the first time.
Real quick, I'm going to interrupt you because I didn't start the sand, but I am going to run the 2-minute sand dial here. So you get 2 minutes where I won't interrupt you, and nobody will. You guys hear that? Nobody will interrupt you.
I might need you to interrupt me.
I will at 2 minutes.
This sort of reminds me of the first time I was ever on the radio. It was Father Ben Ermston's show, and do you guys remember the name of it? It was The Unique Thrust of blah, 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 and it was all about environmental stuff. Father Ben was is a very smart man, and loquacious. And so I sat down with him, and he proceeded to ask me 3 questions in one breath.
What is your name?
And I was nervous to start with, and I'm trying to remember the first question. And
What is your favorite color?
and then all of a sudden he's on the second one, and then I tried to remember that, but then I forgot the first, and then he went to the third, and by that time I was just ready to wilt. I said, Father Ben, you'll have to excuse me. You asked so many questions. I tried to be glib, I guess. I couldn't possibly answer all 3 at once. Which one do you want me to answer first? I said this with my blank mind. And Father Ben says, whichever one you want. And of course, at that point, I couldn't remember any of them. And so I had to kind of get truthful and said, Father Ben, I'm so nervous I don't remember any of them. You're just going to have to start over. And that was my first time on the radio. And you reminded me of that because you just asked me about 3 or 4 questions.
I just like to ask questions. I might ask 3 or 4 more. It's just, I just like...
You know what you'll get, right?
I'll ask them again, that's fine.
One at a time?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'll do that. Like 1.
Set of 3 or 1 question at a time? Was that too many? That was 2. So I know you were co-party of starting OFA, which is some of the organic farm standards in Ohio. And can you tell us a little bit about that time in which you were visioning and seeing something like that happening and being something to put your energy into it?
Well, that was one question. The circumstances that led to OFA were part of one of 2 amazing things that happened in my life when I was in my mid-20s. One was just showing up to this magical valley one day, pretty aimlessly, wondering what in the heck am I going to do with my life. And this whole place, every house on this street had greenhouses. This was the winter salad center of Cincinnati prior to the expressways. Of course, at that point, it was close to 30 years past the beginning of expressways, and everything was going downhill. And one by one, the greenhouses were disappearing. And everybody was just waiting for some developer to come in and do something with this because the farmers weren't making any money. And I decided, well, this generation of farmers is going to make some money. And I had a chance to work at one of these places and bought it. And that started my career. So I'm so lucky to have that happen. But relating to OFA, concurrently to moving here, I was in this public interest group called Rural Resources. And I never understood until last year what that really meant. These were city people working on how to keep farmers on the land and doing things that will make our lives tolerable ecologically. And they had concluded, what do cities need? Rural resources. We have too big a population in here.
For rural.
And if Cincinnati wants to be an ecological city, we have to... Oh, by the way, I didn't get to say hi to you. How do you get to come here
For real.
so many times and I see you and I never get to sit down with you?
Are you talking to me now, baby? Just thinking of
Put
the
the
audio
camera on
listeners,
this
they don't
man
have any
again.
clue what's going on here, but like there's something kinky going on
This
here.
is like, no. Oh my God. This is real life, live recording. Hey,
So
People in Australia are listening to this.
real live connections happening.
oh, they must be tired.
Yeah. I mean, if they're in Australia, they're probably tired.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I think of Australians. I'm like, those Australians are so tired.
He loves to confuse
And then
people
there's
by calling it a
Waltzing
live
Matilda.
What's that again?
And then there's Waltzing Matilda. She's not tired.
That's a great song.
She's not tired.
I'll go waltzing with Matilda.
With me?
With you, yeah.
Off
But
the
we'll do that
rails.
later with our
Totally
wooden
off
shoes
the
on.
rails.
I can't believe you wore those all
Yeah,
day.
real
That's
wooden shoes.
amazing.
Thank you, yeah.
Anyway.
They're made to be worn all day when you find a pair that fits you. These would, it's funny enough, we got Mark Cohen from Athens, Ohio. That's actually where these wooden shoes came from. I picked them up outside of a yard sale somebody was having. I was walking by, popped them on, they clicked right onto my heels like a wooden shoe's supposed to, and I walked off with them and wore them for 3 days straight, and my feet were fine, so.
Oh. Did the witch try and take them off you?
I'm an elf, so like witches, they don't mess with my shoes. They know better.
So anyway,
Yeah, anyway.
Cincinnati wants to be an ecological place to live. We have to learn to integrate what we do in cities here with our rural neighbors. And it seems that this is a very critical time in history because this country, and for that matter, the better part of the world, is now divided between urban and rural. And urban's doing better than the rural right now.
I think in 2008, I saw that was the first time in global history that more people lived in an urban environment than a rural environment, at least in the history that we know of, I guess.
Well, and there's a lot of division between who's doing well in urban and who's not. So, I mean, perhaps I'd be curious, I guess, to hear a little bit more about that and what ways is urban doing better than rural.
Better, I mean, that's an interesting, you said better, but you meant like more people are living there, kind of like more energy going into it?
No, the fact that the energy is moving from rural areas to urban areas, the fact that urban areas use rural areas for raw materials and they extract the wealth from rural areas, bring it into urban areas, and instead of spreading that around, the residue of the wealth ends up in landfills. And so we have this extractive cycle going on that's taking everything out of rural areas, turning it into whatever we turn it into here, and we end up with dump and poison and blah, blah, blah. So really, are we really doing better? Well, I don't know, but you can just see the movement of energy from rural areas to urban areas. They're sucking the life out of rural areas. And if we want to have an ecological city, we have to get the interplay between urban and rural again. Greater Cincinnati has about 2 million people. To feed them well, we need 3 million acres of farmland. So we've got people in the city that we don't even know that we need. We absolutely need those people.
Let's like break it down a little bit too. I mean, you think about it, 2 million people. Let's just say, for example, just to make a simple dinner plan, everybody is eating, like a part of a chicken a day. So maybe like 1 million chickens a day, 365 times in the year. If that's like the only like thing that you're eating, just like food units or something, but just to get an idea, that's a lot of chickens. 365 million chickens
Yeah.
in a year.
Yeah, more than you can put in your backyard.
Right.
So we have primarily Democratic, or in the Republican way of saying it, Democrat cities living off of Republican rural resources.
Interesting.
Now, how we've got to learn to reach out to this other side that we don't know very well, to live in harmony. So the whole thing about agriculture and ecology has started to mix with politics and public public policy, and we're just feeling our way. It's a very interesting apex of history, I think.
So, something I remember you talking with me recently about was some visioning of food, like a food hub kind of concept that would kind of help aggregate people producing foods that are usable and getting them more accessible between everybody. Can you share some of those ideas? That's the one question.
Okay. I'll have to give several answers.
It's fine. That's fine.
Or I could answer my phone.
Yeah, that's probably one of our live listeners that are calling in from Australia.
Cousin Howard, why are you calling now?
Maybe they're in Australia. And they're tired.
I haven't talked to him in 3 months. He calls tonight. I forgot to tell him where I was going to be.
Yeah, you can call him back later and tell him you're on the show.
Yeah.
Like sharing about food hubs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's interesting hearing about like urban versus rural. For me, that certainly could be a dangerous way to think about things. I think people get a certain picture when they hear urban. And yeah, for me, I think it's interesting, and like historically, I definitely think a lot about my people's history and a lot of why cities are so populated, of like Black people being really disenfranchised from their land, and how so much of the South for so long was farmed by Black folks, and the danger of living there led to great migrations of people moving to cities, and how an urban versus rural conversation has been happening for a long time and has been really rooted in the disenfranchisement of land for my folks, and then also, of course, there's history of white people not having necessarily the access that they need as well. It's not like the world was full of like all wealthy white people and then all poor Black folks or anything like that. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that type of language and think about what we could do to correct some of that, given where society is today. I'm not sure that I have the solutions to that, but I do know, for me, there are definitely lots of people who would love to have access to land and love to be in more rural areas. But how do they do that in a safe way? How do people have access to land and feel safe to do so and start to even out these binaries?
Well, I want to come in here just being somebody that lives in a rural area that comes into the urban area fairly often. I almost spend equal time, and sometimes it feels like, in urban and rural environments. And I think that connection between them is pretty strong right now, as I've seen it. And I feel like a lot of the people that live in rural areas now, honestly, are shipping resources in from other countries just as much as people are in the urban areas. I see Amazon drivers in the rural areas constantly. People don't leave their homes, they get to stay in their little rural area and have Amazon bring everything, so like you don't see like everything that's going on. But I often drive through rural areas in the Midwest and I don't see that many people outside. Like maybe they're mowing grass or something. I mean, I don't know, I don't really think that the people in our urban areas in our contemporary times are extracting that much from our rural areas. In a way that's like, I don't know, I mean, they are extracting from all over the world. We all are. In America, I mean,
Well, we're not going to have a lithium mine in Cincinnati.
we might. You never know.
Maybe we'll mine the landfills in 1,000 years
Exactly, yeah.
to find the whatever lithium is left. But it's going to come from rural areas. Where the rural
I hear
areas
what you're saying. Okay.
are right now are basically food deserts to support cattle and other animals that we eat.
And be housing areas for people who are working in those particular mining situations and whatnot in different rural areas. Yep.
So it's an interesting situation that's going on.
Yeah. So I am curious, like, what do you see as a more holistic way? Like, how do you feel like these two?
Well, here's what I came up with, and this is related to Andy's question about my marketing idea. When city consumers are polled, what kind of food would you like to have? Vast majority say, we want stuff that's grown in our area. That's like a given. And we've been working on this for 30, 40 years now, and we weren't the first to try and make that happen. And we haven't succeeded in that changing in the exponential way that it needs to change so that consumers in cities get what they want. So how do you do that? How do you make that happen and support an ecologically healthy region? Well, my idea is that you create a region that has enough land to support the population center, and you create an exclusive terminal market just for things that are grown in our region. So there's a central place for buyers and sellers to get together and market things. You put a branding label on that food, so anytime it gets into the marketplace, it's recognized, and consumers can start to see, oh, so this is how I get what I want. I look for this label. And guess what? There's so many things that we've tried in the past that as soon as they start getting successful, the oligarchy buys it up. The main thing is
the brand gets sold to somebody.
The industry,
loses
the
its
organic
integrity or something.
The organic industry, the best example of all. I mean, as soon as there was a federal law for organics, every food giant in the country, if not the world, started an organic program, and all these.
Isn't that, I mean, I don't know, just, I think all kinds of thoughts, but just to throw a question in there, that somebody might think, like, isn't that good that, like, giant corporations that have money are putting money into organics as opposed to, like, biodestruction?
It's a very good question.
Yeah,
People
that
say
question.
it's a very good question when they don't really have a good answer.
Well, what about that as opposed part? I think the difference is it's not exactly as opposed. It's not like they're putting it into organic as opposed to. It's like it's a different section.
Marketing.
And the primary
section.
section that people are using are still the conventional, of course, and conventional is a kind of a lame way to put it, because then there's people have issues like, oh, what's wrong with me for buying conventional food? And people take it as like some sort of attack or insult, but not realizing that it's not about being conventional, it's about nasty chemicals in our soils, in our bodies.
And one of the prophets of our generation was Deep Throat, the one that told on Nixon. Mm-hmm. And what did he say? Follow the money. If you follow the money, you'll understand why it's not good to have large corporations buying up our food system.
Yeah, because what does organic mean?
Well, organic means a lot still, but they will. When I started in organics, if you cheated, you were out of business. No one would come near you. Now we have these big companies that will cheat whenever they can get away with it, and they get fined, and it's just a cost of doing business.
Yeah, it's like a friend of mine that used to work with the EPA. They'd go and like do these like runs to different places to do testing, and quickly was able to tell people were like setting everything up because they knew the EPA guy was coming to do testing on their factory or their chemicals, and as soon as they were gone, like they would just let things slide again. And I don't know, it's interesting. How do you hold people accountable for these things? How do you make people want to take care of the environment around them?
Well,
You can't make them, just let them know they're part of it. And
there's lots of ways, but I think that the stealthy thing about this idea of mine is if you limit the producers to be in a 75-mile radius of Cincinnati, agribusiness can't buy it out. There will be a place, authentic place for Cincinnati consumers to get what they want, and that will stimulate a change in production habits so that we have a more ecological food system.
Yeah.
sounds like a good flow. We like flowers. We like flowers.
I
Flowing.
think there's a lot of,
Thank you so much.
I think a lot of what we're trying to do is wake the farm up, and a lot of people who are similarly minded is like expand this for people now while it's still something that we can like choose, and it's not like some breakdown in the way that everything works where we're forced to like come up with these solutions. And of course that sort of thing might happen one day.
What kind of food do we want? You kept mentioning what kind of food do we want. Do we even know what we want? Everybody in the city, we all just want donuts, right? What do they want? Can we just get donuts delivered to our
Healthy
house in the
donuts.
morning, locally it's cold donuts. They just want donuts. I just want donuts. They
Healthy
just want
donuts and kosher ham.
I just want breakfast cereal. They like to have breakfast in bed. I want breakfast on my roof. I want breakfast in my porch. I want donuts, Is that what I should want? What you say? They just want to feed me salad. They just want to feed me salad. I want a donut. They just want to feed me salad. They just want the donuts in bed. Yeah. But I've been looking so good. I've been looking good with my donuts. I expect you guys to be eating my salad. Dunkin' Donuts. Did y'all get your donation in? Yeah. If you didn't get your donation in, don't forget the donation. We like donuts. Donation.
I don't even get a funny voice.
My breakfast in bed. What about breakfast in bed? What about breakfast in bed? Eat 'em. What about breakfast in bed? Eat 'em.
Give them a salad.
What about breakfast in bed? What about donuts? What should we want to eat? David Rosenberg. What should we want to eat? What do the people want?
That might be the key question. What do we want? We want our food to make us healthy. We want a decent environment to live in. And there's all these great ideas cropping up. So it can happen. And to get back to your original question, well, what about OFA? OFA's, I guess everyone here knows about OFA.
But not all our
Well,
listeners.
not our listeners.
Okay, is the Ohio Ecological Food and Farming Association.
There's definitely a solid amount of people that are that end up checking this out that don't know anything. Actually,
They don't know
so
anything.
appreciate-
They don't
No,
know
and not in
anything.
the
But-
no, I don't know anything. No, I mean that don't really know like what OFA is or these different departments or ways that to deal with energy. For instance,
All the
so
different
stuff you're bringing,
things.
this is an element of this is outreach. It's outreach in a sense to say, hey, so no, yeah, what is that? Yeah, no one else.
So
We know
OFA
dandelion.
was the child of Rural Resources, which was the second amazing thing that happened in my life, where I got to be in a group that wanted to work on these things. And we were sitting at a board meeting talking about Ohio with some of our out-of-state board members. And what could they were saying, well, what could we do in Ohio? And I said, well, Ohio doesn't even have an organic farmers association. And one of our out-of-town trustees said, well, you should create one. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear, because I couldn't even imagine how that could happen. But we huddled together after the out-of-town people had left, and Terry Grundy said, well, our out-of-town trustees said we should do this. It's going to be hard, but I think we should do it. And that's how OFA was born.
OFA does a conference in Ohio every year.
Every year.
It's how many years now, do you know?
It's in the 40s. Do you know, Mark? Yeah.
About 40. Okay. It's a young thing, Mm-hmm. It's almost. It's really beautiful artwork. I always see on their flyers too. It's like, I think the same artist that puts it together for the Paw Paw Festival, Ohio Paw Paw Festival. There's really neat. You guys have seen them, right? The little carvings, and they print them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a real technical term for that.
So if there's one thing that I think is good to realize for your listeners is how simple a great idea happens. OFA now, we didn't even have staff for 10 or more years. Now they have a staff of 40. They have a conference where thousands come every year. They're nationally known. And it was just, you need to start an Ohio Organic Farmers Association. So the two things to realize about that is, one, how small a circumstance has to be for a great idea to happen. And I just have to remember what the second thing is.
Wake the farm up!
The second thing is that as much as you scheme and plan, most of the time these things come as just amazing surprises. And
Beautiful.
and so stick with what you guys are doing. It might look like you're a small fish in a big ocean, but things will change. And I can't wait to see what you guys end up doing.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And, just going back, I think you've done so much, and you've brought so much turnaround, just even hearing about the OFA experience that you've had. And I know there's more to this guy, but we're going to, move the show on for the night. Thank you so much. Let's all give it up for David Rosenberg down here at Woodshoe Hollow, Cincinnati! Thank you. Wake the farm up. How you guys feeling? Feeling good?
Yeah. We've been here talking about Wooden Shoe Hollow. Andy's got some real, y'all in the show out there in Australia. Sorry you're so tired, but also sorry you can't see Andy's shoes right now. Got some real wooden shoes. There's like a whole cultural mix-up going on right here. Got some like Dutch wooden shoes because we're in the Wooden Shoe Hollow. There's a didgeridoo being played. Love you, Australia. New Zealand especially. Thanks for all the loving us over there. And so I don't live in the Hollow, but it's really fun for me to be technically in my own neighborhood. Y'all have heard us podcasting, from my neighborhood a bit recently. We had our interview with Obalaye of 144 Farms. We've had...
Yeah, if you guys are not connected with the 144 Farms, like right around here on Winton Road, keep an eye out for them. Go to our podcast, and there's an episode that'll be coming out here shortly that'll have a link on it that you can help contribute to the 144 Farms.
Yeah, and those who are listening will probably be hearing that one. That one will have already dropped before this, but I live here in Spring Grove Village, Cincinnati, in the more of the neighborhood proper that is like more in the city. Got the city feel, got the city vibes a little bit. I've been on my community council for a few years. I stepped off this year, but for 4 years I was on the council, and it's been really cool to be involved in my community and to learn more about this area. But being down in the Hollow is definitely special and kind of new for me. And today we got to hear some of that history. And I'd love to invite our next guest up here to replay that history.
Yeah.
Eleen.
Eleen Fruschett.
I knew Eleen. It's not Thank you so much. We got an awesome exclamation coming. Why? Why on earth is Andy wearing these wooden shoes? Feel free to take the roundabout way.
Eleen, here's a microphone for you. Make sure I'm spinning properly.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good. Yep.
We will give the proper 2 minutes uninterrupted here.
And just to let people kind of know, like what I'm saying, I'm in my neighborhood, but we're in this hollow and all this stuff. But yeah, this is a really special little part of Cincinnati. So just a few miles, just right outside of this little neighborhood, there's like the full city to set the vibe for y'all out there. So we're like in the middle of the city, but we're in this magical cove here. And it's like lots of green space and forest.
Unicorns.
Take it away, Eleen.
Unicorn. Yep. Yeah, it is magical. And I really appreciate Andy wearing those shoes. And I marveled at the fact that you could do it all day. And you said you actually wore them 3 days in a row when you got them. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of the story of Wooden Shoe Hollow is that wooden shoes were worn here, but wooden shoes came here on German feet. And it was the farmers that originally came here, the market gardeners, lived very close to the Dutch border. So they learned from the Dutch, and they brought wooden shoes with them, which was very helpful down in this valley, and the kind of work that they did to be out in the muck. They could work in the cold, they could work in the heat, and they also knitted their own wool socks, which kept them warm, and they could drop those shoes outside their door. We're talking back 1860, 1870, when in the hollow here, these German market farmers came down, gardeners came down, and actually provided the produce, like David said, you know. This was the, what'd you call it, David? The salad capital? The winter salad bowl, yes,
Winter salad bowl for Cincinnati.
for Cincinnati. Well, and as we know, there weren't grocery stores people were running to, no convenient marts, nothing. So your food was really local, right? You got your food very locally. And these growers took it to market downtown Cincinnati, where there were like 13. We have a Findlay market here in Cincinnati, but there were 13 of those in the day, way back when. And
13.
markets.
Oh, wait, Wick Pharma, the 2 minutes just wrapped up anyway, so I can cut into
You
there.
can cut in, cut in,
13 Findlay markets?
Well, 13 markets.
Findlay Market in Cincinnati is the bigger urban market where, just so our listeners know,
Do you
Cincinnati,
remember
we
the names of
know.
any of them?
Court
But it's
Street
so
Market.
special, unique.
the-
Cincinnati.
Pardon?
Sorry, we're okay. Since we're kind of stopping over Findlay Market, I feel like just a little quick description. Like it's a beautiful collection of shops downstairs in downtown. Well, OTR, Cincinnati, which is real close to downtown, and basically it's a space where farmers used to come and share their produce, and still do come. And there's a couple other shops as well, but it's a pretty unique vibe. Definitely check it out if you come to Cincinnati. If you are from here, you probably already know it. I definitely get a lot of my stuff there. I get chicken and stuff from Harrison, Ohio. I get all that. There's a lot of local farmers still doing that, and Cincinnati is just a really lucky place to have that particular resource.
And that's a renaissance, actually, of the original farmers markets. I mean, it's come full swing, and that's the story of what happened down here, right?
Can I
these
ask real quick
growers-
before we forget, though? Will you name as many as you remember? Of the
There's
13?
Pearl Street Market, Court Street Market, Findlay Market. Do you remember any more, David? Yeah, I mean, those were the ones when
Pearl Street.
Yeah, but they just had, how'd you get your groceries? And usually you bought groceries regularly, right? You bought your produce, you bought your meat, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right?
You didn't
So
like
went and
stock
visited.
up. You didn't stock up like you're going to the big Costco or something and come
Not
home
quite.
with like a truckload of milk and boxes and stuff.
Not quite. But that story, when you say about Findlay Market and what all is available there, including the farmers section, right? But it used to be just the farmers, okay? Just the farmers and the butchers,
Yeah.
So these farmers raised these vegetables, and they took them downtown, and they were, with their mule or their horse and their cart, took them down, and on the way back from there, coming back home, they stopped at the stockyards, and they picked up manure. And they hauled that manure home, and then they top-dressed these fields. So we're talking, almost 150 years ago, right? And they did that, my understanding, they did it at least for 70 of those years. And so they top-dressed this soil. So to this day, when we dig down in our soil, we have 1.5 feet of loam, L-O-A-M. Very rich, unbelievable soil. And to me, that's the greatest gift of this area.
That reminds me of like that Tetra Petra that we were talking about earlier, that
Terra
Preta.
Yeah.
Terra Preta.
Yeah.
That, people had created for hundreds of years, and then people got to enjoy it 700 years later. It's like a microcosm of that.
Yes, yeah, and they knew how to grow, right? And they weren't using chemical fertilizers at that point. So things advanced, methods advanced. Earlier methods were the cold frame and the hotbed, so you could start your vegetables early. Imagine what you would call a bed in your garden, if you're an urban grower, and you would have a frame around that bed, and you would have something that the light could come through, usually some glass, that the light could come through, and that could help your vegetables get an early start. The manure did the same. It helped fertilize, but also heat. Just basically, you had a lot of heat. And actually, there's a couple of farmers. There's one that's not that far from here now that still has those cold frames / hotbeds. And they're used with a farming cooperative called Our Harvest Cooperative. Dale Barr still has his up there on North Bend Road. And they use them to start their onions and their leeks. And, they'll get them going every year. They also have high tunnels and other various stages of agricultural production. So they went from that stage to heating it in various ways. Moved not totally moved away from manure early on, but moved into having them heated by steam pipes underneath, and then those had to be the steam that was was produced, was run with boilers, came out of boilers, and you see all these chimney stacks, tall, tall, tall. So they were coal at first, which must have been phenomenal pollution down here in this little valley. And then they went into gas and propane, right? Yeah, if you come down to the hollow, you'll see the remnant of those. And something at a future time, you need to talk to Mark about an idea that he has for biochar, for a repurposing of those great big chimneys. Yeah. Pretty interesting. Yeah, you were going to ask a question?
I was going to ask, you were talking about the area right here.
That's right.
The pillars, and I lost my question because
The
you went somewhere
chimneys?
totally else on that. About the different fuels and stuff, and you said something about how you can all see that, but then you were talking about seeing the chimneys, and I picked up on
Okay,
that,
so the process, the production methods changed, right, over time with different energy forms.
Right.
So, and trying to be able to extend the season, because here in Cincinnati, we wouldn't be having a 9-month season, right, for producing that stuff. So
warm ground.
warm ground helps, manure helps, but also then something parallel was happening with this energy system, so that you ended up by the 50s into the 60s, right? We begin to have farming, agriculture being coming from many directions across the country, right? Transported. We had California produce, we had Florida produce, we had East Coast, Southeast Coast produce, and other things, other things that came. And so then, when the farmers took their things to market, they had to compete with what was being produced elsewhere far cheaply, right? And when that happened, that in many ways drove them out of business. They couldn't make the product, and their product wasn't respected. Many of them, I talked to many of those farmers. I was involved with David in Rural Resources, and we did tailgate markets together here in the city in the late 70s, and actually there are still tailgate markets in the city. And a tailgate market's different than your market with value-added produce or value-added products, okay? It really is, you bring in your truck, you put out that tailgate, or you unload it onto a stand and you sell it to folks. And in the heyday of those here in the 80s, we had 14 tailgate markets around the city. So that did support some local growers, okay?
Yeah.
And they actually had their own organization eventually. They had their own organizations. They set their prices when they went to market. They worked that out. And they had a location. Very hard work, very hard work. The farmers down in the hollow here, by that time, they had moved from vegetable production to bedding plants and then to flowers. Okay?
Flowers.
Flowers, yes.
Finding their flow.
Finding their flow.
Gotta get that
However,
flow.
Kroger's got in on that too, right? So it made life really hard. So by the 3rd to 4th generation of the farmers that came here originally, they said, hey kids, you're not going to make it here. You know, you're going to have to go to college, get a job outside of this. It won't be able to support you. So that was a hard scene, but there were people like David and others who were still working to have local produce, to have local organic produce available. And those markets were successful, but most of those people who were coming to market also carried a full-time job. Majority of them did. Not every single one, you know, but the majority of them had another job, or somebody else in the family who was doing it. So those shifts occurred, and when Ed, my husband, and I came down here, we were the new kids on the block, and that was like 43.
I love that band.
Yeah.
You got the right stuff, baby.
Got the right stuff. New kids on the block. And literally because most of the people besides David were of families that had lived here for many generations. They were here. And that was 43 years ago. So what's encouraging to me to see is that a new turn. It's the same thing. Office started around 1979, 1980. And we're coming back to this desire for local, right? And in the Findlay Market that we were down to, there was Court Market and Findlay Market, at least when I was shopping downtown. When I first went to shop there, the commission houses were there. And the farmers were on the outskirts. They were on the side streets, the local farmers, okay? Then the local farmers weren't there at all. Then it was just commission house produce. And then, I don't know, how long ago did they do the farm stand thing? Do you remember, David? Where they put Bonnie Mitsui, Turner Farm, put up the money to have the local farmers.
Yeah, that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it would be 20 years ago, which brought the farmers back. Okay, they came back, and now what's interesting to me.
That's when I moved into your backyard too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the little vine cut. So yeah, I moved into the backyard here, and I remember at that time, after having been in places like California, little cute buzzwords like local food was funny. I remember somebody at the market in 2006-07 asking me if the sign that said local meant low calorie.
Oh, wow.
Oh, low cal. Woo. That is a sad statement, right?
There's a lot of education that goes involved in this situation.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
What's interesting to me
For ourselves.
is that now when I go to Findlay Market, there is one commission house, Roth Produce. There's one commission house. And then there's ETC Produce, who sells every day, and they are selling local growers' product.
Yeah,
That is amazing. That's
got
amazing.
ETC and a Northside Farmers Market. But I got to play the cultivator host again.
Please.
What is a commission house?
What is a commission house?
Yeah.
It's like a terminal for produce. You would take if you were a farmer, you would take your produce to
Bring
the
it-
commission house. They would buy it at a wholesale price.
Yeah, you bring
And
your
they and they
tomatoes
would-
or whatever and unload 10 boxes of tomatoes at one place. They buy them for a price, and then they are either reselling or distributing
right.
them to some way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Gotcha.
actually, Cincinnati was a hub.
Yeah.
You know, what came from the south, what came from the north, east and west. It was a strong hub. Not the only hub, but there was a lot that came through here in Cincinnati.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I just love, being my little silly self. I've lived in Cincinnati almost 7 years now, so not quite. It sounds like that Turner Farms investment came in before I was here. We talked on the show before about how, Cincinnati is kind of special in having these winter markets. Andy and Stefin played a big role in keeping that going for the Northside Farmers Market. And, I just came in and, the reason I went grocery free is because I saw that it was possible. And
Yes.
It's because of this whole history that's being laid out in front of me now. And I love that me, as the person who, as I said, lives right outside of this little hollow, living in the more city proper, living in a very diverse neighborhood, socially, economically, racially, all the different ways. Like, it's really magical to just have made this decision about my life, and it was little buzzwords like locale that that got me turned on. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, local, buying local's cool. Let me shop at the market. Oh, okay, well, let me get a CSA. My CSA is from our harvest. Oh,
Okay.
well, okay, let me check it. And it's just like one thing led to another because of all this work that sounds like was grueling for lots of people. Lots of people had to really put themselves out there, but it's really fun to be somebody who that worked out, and I have this grocery-free lifestyle now. Thanks, y'all.
And
Flowers.
It is grueling, and I think that's where we got to stand by these farmers.
Yes.
We really have to support the farmers. A criteria we have at our harvest is, can our own employees buy the produce that we sell?
So important.
Can they buy it? I mean, they get their perks for the produce they grow, period.
Yeah.
But, what kind of a wage? In no way do we pay for the true cost of growing food.
Right.
And I'm not talking the transportation cost
Right.
across the country. I'm talking what it costs sun up to sundown, season to season.
Yeah, that's why it's really important to learn foraging, because you cut all of that out. You're just direct connection with a plant or whatever you're foraging, perhaps a mushroom or a squirrel for that matter. There's so much food that can be interacted with in a way that's even closer.
Yes.
And it's not saying it's better, it's just saying it's sustaining and it's,
And it's connecting.
Connecting.
It's connecting. That's the biggest thing. Where does, it's asking a kid, where does your potato come from? Where's that potato chip come from? Where's that carrot come from? Out of the ground? Really?
I was raised, I remember a concept that was, and kind of instilled to me as a child was, don't ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And I think a lot about labor and other people's labor. And, it's really interesting to hear. It's like this is a grueling, excruciating process. And it was interesting to me while y'all are out here singing about donuts and let me have a donut, all this stuff.
Oh.
Let's not go there. No, hold on.
Should we sing it? Breakfast in bed.
We already heard the donut song, thank you. But, listeners might have heard on another podcast where Andy was talking about how when he was a farmer at the market trying to sell cucumbers and people would show up with their $5 donuts but wouldn't want to buy the $1 cucumber. And, it's like there's a lot of labor that goes into the food that we get. And when we can support people and give a living wage, when we can pay properly for it, that is really just valuing other people's labor. It's valuing humanity. And I recently had to get a little bit deeper. I dropped part of why I did this was to reduce the amount of trafficked labor that goes into my food. And somebody's like, okay, explain a little bit further. I'm like, oh, right, I forget that's not just just common knowledge, but so much of the food that we eat is really what would be considered trafficked labor. People are being paid completely ridiculous wages, completely unlivable, being forced to live in inhumane situations. And there's a lot of details about that, and I hope people will go and look and learn into it a lot more. But buying local, supporting these types of local food systems is truly supporting humanity and people's well-being in a deep level.
Okay.
Yes,
very much so. But I think the other thing, like today, what happened here was giving people a chance to connect to the earth, to their environment. You can use
Together.
Together.
Take
Yeah.
the labor away from somebody else. Get your own direct connection.
Yeah, get a direct connection. And I mean, I always believe, environmental issues, threat, the doom picture never motivates anybody for that long. you do what you love. You know, you work for what you love, and that's where I think, you know, with the kids, with you know, everybody, you got to come to love this earth, come to love, you know, that's our mother.
Yeah. And you know, one of the my mentor
Wake the farm up.
who helped me a lot getting into this, my dear friend Rob Greenfield talks a lot about a year that he spent only eating food that he either foraged or grew. And, you know, he talked a lot about how that process, like, it really was a lot of work, and people want to imagine, romanticize it one way or another. But the real way that you can make that bearable is by being present with it, by enjoying that process, by having that be like the thing that you are doing, and it's bringing pleasure, it's bringing joy in and of itself. That's what I love about foraging. It's like, this is a pleasurable experience all around. It's not something I'm doing as a means to an end. It's like, oh, I gotta get through this and roll to the end. Like, there might be moments of that. There might be times when you have to endure something. But overall, what a more pleasurable way to live life when you're in direct connection and doing this in community, and you know, you're supporting the environment and all this, rather than just, you know, the way that we do it now, which is go work a job. Maybe don't, like, lots of times don't enjoy that job.
Get enough money to buy donuts. I
Go
want
buy the
donuts.
Don't buy the cucumbers, they're too expensive, but buy the donuts. Doesn't matter how much they cost.
That's right. That's it.
Eileen, thank you so much for coming on to the Wake the Farm Up show. You've been an inspiring source of life for me for so long. Appreciate you so much for sharing that with the whole show here. Thank you.
I've been here all day.
So we're gonna wrap up our show with one more guest here tonight. This is our Keystone guest of the night, you could say. And we love this concept of flowing like flowers tonight. So we're gonna flow with the Keystone Flora man, Steve, coming up from behind the pod floating thing from the tree over there. What are those called? UFOs. Steve! Wake the farm up!
Howdy, folks.
He's gonna go into a Bruce Springsteen song right now. I can feel it.
So let's give Steve his 2 minutes uninterrupted. You hear that, Andy?
2 minutes.
Uninterrupted.
Interrupted. All right, for 2 minutes, we're gonna interrupt Steve.
No.
Wait, what did you say?
You misheard me. Do not interrupt. Keep your mouth shut. Somebody turn that elf mic off.
Hey, the music's pretty cool, man. What do you got going here?
Oh, the music's good. This is for your flow right now.
Yeah, I like it, man.
This is a review for the podcast, and right now we're rocking some Dr. Bionic. Dr. Bionic's a local Cincinnati band that creates this amazing,
sounds good,
beautiful
man.
sound right here. It's
like
all like instrumental vibes. We get down with it in the podcast. They've been in the show before. We appreciate them. That's why we're shouting them out even more. Dr. Bionic, some local food for your ears. All right, here's your 2 minutes.
All right.
Steve.
So what's the format? You want to ask me questions or?
You get uninterrupted. You get 2 minutes to share about
Okay.
Keystone. All right, we got to go back in time.
Okay, let's stop killing the good stuff that we have right now. That's where we start, you know? We're talking about native habitat, quality habitat, at times old growth habitat. Let us preserve what we have, and let's start fixing what we've ruined through the use of plants. The plants that feed the insects, who feeds the birds, and feeds the trees, and feeds the soil. So let's keep it together, you know? Let's stop ruining what we got right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have like a minute and a half.
What's that, 30 seconds?
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds.
Okay, what else is there, you know? Let's start fixing what we got. You know, take a drive from Cincinnati to Minnesota, 2 bug splats on the windshield. Come on. Back in the day, you'd have to scrape the bugs off your windshield. The insects are going through a major collapse. We're going down, folks. Enjoy it while you can. So what do? All right. Well, everybody who has a yard can control their yard, or they have land, or administer some landscape. Let's plant things that support insects, who supports birds, supports the soil. We have to preserve what we have, and we have to fix it. So how do you do it? Well, what used to be there? What was there pre-European destruction?
Wake the farm
Wake
up.
the farm up.
Wake the farm up.
Yeah.
What was there?
You know, so
The first thing that came to my mind real quick coming off what
Must
you're saying
be-
was bur oak.
must be
Like,
two,
you know
2
about
minutes
bur
must
oak?
be up.
Yeah, it's interrupt time. I had to
got a
bring up,
stopwatch over
you
there?
were talking about bur oaks, right? Like you were talking about things being broke and need to be fixed. You're just talking about a bur oak,
Sure. Yeah.
right? That's what you were talking about, right, earlier?
No.
And about everything that needs fixed. Like, what's
Anyway,
going on? What's
yeah,
going on?
the bur oak is good for savannas, and it's a good tree. We have 3 of them right across the street here.
Savannahs?
Yep.
Oh my God, we had some delicious bur oak, acorn, elderberry, and black walnut muffins here earlier today. So I ate a lot. They were cut in half. They were smart to cut them in half because I had like 3 halves. I would have just had 3 whole ones if they hadn't cut them in half.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So you were saying to put things back, like, where were you going with that, right, when we cut you off?
All the plants you're standing on right here, these were not made in America. These came from somewhere else.
They were manufactured here, though, right?
You know, invasive plants are taken over everywhere. You can't see a landscape anywhere that is not invaded with invasive things that were not here originally. Same thing's happening in Europe, Asia, everywhere. It's the Columbian exchange. The interchange of plants goes all over the world, and there are no checks and balances to these invasive plants, and they take over your life, and you spend your life weeding. Hey, any farmers here do any weeding? Where are those weeds from?
I quit
A
weeding.
lot of those weeds aren't from here. So what are they doing here?
Yeah, like, why, what are they doing here? Like, can you answer that? What are they doing here? Like, if they're not supposed to be, why are they?
They're here because they don't have any insects, bacterias, funguses, maladies to keep them in check. And so they run rampant through the environment, and they don't have anything to slow them down or keep them from overtaking your life and making you pull weeds all the time.
So eat them if you can.
So a lot of people have learned how to eat them. Well, good luck. There's
Did they eat them all yet?
You're going to have a hard time taking care of your landscape if you're trying to eat your way through weeding. You know?
Whoa.
So anyway, we want to promote plants that support bumblebees, butterflies, birds,
Flies, too.
insects.
I was pointing out flies, save the flies. They pollinate pawpaw trees.
Syrphid flies are good flies. They're the hover flies that can fly backwards. They do bee mimicry. They look like bees, but they're not. They're flies.
I love those hover flies. They play that. It's a game I used to play as a kid. When somebody says, "Don't touch me," and you're like, "I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you." They kind of hover like within an inch of your skin, just like, okay, they're not going to touch me. But then you bend to bump them, and then they get upset a little bit.
They're fine. Anyway, so there's a lot going on. A lot of teeny tiny micro insects. Very important. Everything feeds somebody else. The food chain. It's all about the food chain.
Who's the last person you ate?
That's kind of personal, isn't it?
That is personal. All right, who's the last one that you ate? maybe not a person, but you could personify it if you want to.
Well, I've never been asked that before. I don't have an answer.
Really? Like, you don't remember the last, like, thing that you ate?
What's the last thing you planted?
Like 5 minutes ago? Like, did you eat something?
Oh, I had a potato chip a little while ago.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not a purist, no.
That's not from here.
No.
There was Lay's, so that is kind of local, right? So you get some, we talked about this on this show before. Around here, you could go to the, like, gas station at the corn syrup. Like, they don't call it the corn syrup. They call it the soda fountain, right? That's our local corn syrup. You can go there.
Soda fountain. Sorry, slip of the words there.
I really meant pop fountain, but I don't know. They always called it a soda fountain around here, but we would go to the soda fountain to get pop, not soda.
I didn't grow up drinking much of either, but we called it soda where I'm from.
But really, this guy over here, Steve, like, he knows a lot about native plants.
Yeah, what's the last thing you planted?
I was thinking about May pops, you know. I was kind of thinking it's May, and we were talking about pops. I wanted to ask him if you know much about, you guys got May pops over there?
We grow maypops. Yep.
Tell us about stuff.
Passiflora incarnata.
Tell us about Keystone Flora.
Passiflora incarnata.
Every native vine that I've run
what are
into
maypops?
will take over your landscape.
What are maypops?
You gotta
See,
be
like,
careful.
we got a lot of
Stop
people
somewhere.
right around here that don't even know what maypops are. So, like, I need you, of all people, like, standing right in front of Keystone Flora to tell us all what maypops
Are
My
and
daughter
why,
knows what maypop
like, some Cincinnati guy would be like, I like May Pops, it's different than May Soda. Like, it starts getting confusing without Steve communicating what it, ready? Alright, shut up. What are May Pops?
I feel like maypops are like when the popsicles come to the farmer's market in May, right?
I'd love to know. Popsicles?
Yeah, they get popsicles at the farmer's market in May.
That's what you're talking about, May Pop is?
Maypops, right? That's what it is, right?
Is that what a May Pop is, Steve? Is that native popsicle stand?
Passiflora incarnata.
It's the best flavor.
Paso what?
If you want to know what
tried
it
that
is,
one yet.
learn the name. Learn how to say it. Say it, Andy.
Paso Flora.
Now
Incarnata.
may I learn?
Flora.
Passiflora incarnata.
Passiflora incarnata.
You got to know the right name. Common names will mess you up. Got to know the right name.
Say it right.
It's a native vine. Has a very beautiful flower. Bumblebees love it.
What's its native
And the
name?
vine will go all over your yard. It'll go underneath the sidewalk. It'll go underneath the driveway. It'll go up through a stump. It will climb up your shrubs.
Why do I want
And
that?
it is a wild vine.
It's so wild, so
Well, you
wild.
asked me what it was, and that's what it is.
Why do you want passion? Tell me why you would want passion fruit, Liz.
Oh,
Why?
passion fruit.
Tell me why you would want passion fruit.
I do want that.
Passion fruit might be a different species than Passiflora incarnata.
It makes a fruit that I call passion fruit because it comes from the Passiflora, which is the passion fruit. Passiflora incarnata is different than the
passion fruit that you'll find in the Middle East, or it's different than the passion fruit you'll find in Puerto Rico. Sure, but right here it's passion fruit, and that's what we call it, you know, more regularly common folk.
thought it was
But down
maypop.
here
It's
that's
maypop.
what elves call it, but yeah, there's a lot of people that call it maypops, but most people call it passion flower because that's usually the part that they're harvesting, the flower itself.
Oh, the flower is
Because
beautiful.
the whole entire vine of Passiflora incarnata is an antidepressant. You can harvest the leaves, the vine, any part of it that's growing all over your yard, and you can help take care of all the people in your neighborhood that are depressed. And then it won't be on top of your shed or your barn anymore. You'll harvest it. All right. What else you got popping up over there? I want to get some plants sometime down at Keystone Flora and take out some invasives in some backyards, and I'm going to put them in and put in like a completely new planting ecosystem and nurture it, and so it starts propagating itself and takes over.
You know,
like,
we've made some progress here, Andy. That's right on. That's right down on, man. Thank you. That's excellent. We've made some progress. Let's hear it for Andy.
What? Yeah.
I think I've got very high hopes for you, my man. I think you can get there. I really do. I think yes. Let's do
Come
it.
on
I'll
down
help
to
you.
Keystone Flora.
I'll help you. Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate your help. Thank you. Yeah, visit Steve at Keystone Flora, Cincinnati, Ohio. Make an appointment. Check the links for all the fascinating, fun things that we can add to this show. Check out the Wake the Farm Up podcast live shows.
Thank you to the balcony section.
Thank you all for coming. Wake the farm up all night long. You know, I just have to cut into one more little issue. So we need more roosters in our urban environments. I just need to put that out there. We need more butcher shops that don't have money connected to them at all. So there's no paper trails. It's just places people can process the roadkills that are happening in their areas before they just become stagnant and turn into flies. Turn the hides into clothes.
Wake the farm up.
Wake the farm up.
Support the show.
Wake the forest up. Wake up the love.
Keep on listening. Keep on learning. Keep on maintaining ground with us.
They're all dancing now, Liz. Let's go dance. Wake them up! All right, Stefan's gonna let us all dance a little bit with a little bit of Stefin101 cut.
Consumer. Take all that energy away, they make us feel like the losers. Got nothing left to say, go on and system and group us. This is where we're at now, but I refuse that conclusion.
See, these collusions make illusions that are polluting my mind. Look around at every corner, what you think that I find? I know that all the greatest truths contain all the greatest lies. But if we look inside ourselves, the golden age will find. I'm a beast, don't get weak, don't know words like defeat. Unity, will I be until death do I meet?
asking for the kitchen, I ain't asking for the watch. I ain't asking for no trouble, what you go and call the cops? I know we got our problems, man, I know we got a lot, but we can talk it out, that way nobody's getting shot.